Happy October and welcome to OctoberFest here on the Andrew Fantasia channel. Let's dive right in. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. We're starting the month off with movies from my childhood. What kind of scary / Halloweeny movies did I grow up with, and what inspired me to love this season so darn much? Well, let's begin with an interesting one. Let's begin with An American Werewolf in London. An American Werewolf in London is not the kind of movie you would associate with anybody's childhood because it is very R-rated, and it's not the only R-rated movie that's going to be in my childhood category, FYI. We never owned this movie growing up, but it would play on TV a lot, and I think it would play uncensored on TV a lot too, because I remember them showing all the blood and all the gore, and I even remember a little bit of the swearing. The only thing I wasn't allowed to watch was a sex scene that happened midway through. I remember my mom would always get me to cover my eyes during this scene. Werewolves tearing people up is fine, but God forbid I see two people kissing in a shower. Anyway, this is a strange but kind of delightful little movie. It was directed by John Landis, and it's just about, two Americans out backpacking in the English countryside when they are attacked by a werewolf. One of them dies. Spoiler, the other one lives but becomes a werewolf himself. The neat twist here is that his friend's ghost keeps visiting him and saying that he can't cross over into the afterlife. He's stuck in a sort of limbo, and he'll be stuck there forever until David, the werewolf, dies. So his friend's ghost keeps popping up into his life and trying to encourage him to kill himself so that he can end the werewolf curse and not hurt any other people. David is in denial at first, but then, of course, werewolf-y stuff starts happening to him, and he runs around London tearing up folks with his claws and teeth. What was so neat about this movie, and I think what attracted so many people to it, was the fact that it was a comedy and a horror. And I don't think that had been done too often, at least not at this point. The movie came out in 1981, so that may have been a new thing back then. John Landis did this funny thing, though, in the way that he balanced the comedy and the horror, and that the comedy is dark at times, and at other times very dry and British, because it does take place in London, and at other times almost to the point of absurdity. There's a scene close to the end of the movie where David wanders into a porno theater, of all things, sits in the backseat of this porno theater while this admittedly hilarious porno plays on the screen, and starts talking to the ghosts of all the people he has killed as a werewolf, including his own best friend. Each one of these ghosts is trapped in limbo and is encouraging him to die so that they can all be free and cross over. This is like something you would read in a Terry Pratchett or a Douglas Adams novel. It's very dark and just tinged with a lot of horrific stuff because they're telling him basically to commit suicide, but it's played in such a strange, surreal way. This movie really doesn't feel like too many movies out there. Also, despite being a comedy and despite involving, a romance throughout most of the film, this film does not end in a happy way by any stretch of the imagination, and it ends abruptly too. I'm going to try to avoid too many spoilers throughout Oktoberfest just in case people hear about these movies for the first time and want to see them on their own. But I will say that the ending to American Werewolf in London leaves a bit to be desired and might be kind of jarring for some, especially if they've been riding this tidal wave of I'm having a good time, this is a fun, lighthearted movie, because it does play it that way. Yes, there are ghosts, and yes, there are murders, but the murders have a very tongue-in-cheek feel to it, and the ghosts are played for laughs. The werewolf transformation scene is great, and it's probably the most disturbing scene apart from the ending. So if you like seeing, people turn into monsters, you're really gonna love what they did with this. There's a sequel of sorts, even though it doesn't have any of the same characters or anything, that came out in 1997 called An American Werewolf in Paris. I have not seen this one, but apparently it is kind of garbage, mostly because they used a lot of CGI for the werewolf stuff as opposed to the practical effects that they did in this one. And remember, this is 1997. CGI in 1997 does not look pleasant. So if you can only watch one horror / comedy about an American person who becomes a werewolf in a European country, my money is on the London one. Plus, I have always wanted to visit the English countryside and walk around in the moorlands and explore old castles and things like that. And the first half of this movie is just seeped in that atmosphere. You got these little towns out in the middle of nowhere. You got the foggy moorlands and the distant howls of wolves in the night. It really does a great job of setting that mood and getting you in the right kind of feels for a good old-fashioned English werewolf story. So that's An American Werewolf in London. That's the first day of Oktoberfest. I'll see you here next time for more spooky fun. Until then, Adios.